Welcome to this week's Food Sports Central, the podcast of the World Food Championships. I am, of course, your host, Mark Conway, and man, we are getting so excited. We're getting excited for the final table, which will be coming up in May. We're getting excited to learn more about the 11th anniversary event and where that's going to be and everything that's going to happen there. But I think at the same time, we have to look back and wonder, what are these competitors thinking? What are the competitors feeling as they get ready to not only come off of the high of a successful championship win in their category in Dallas, but what happens next? What do they do for those few months between November and World Foods and May and Final Table? Because there's a lot that happens. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of, what do I need to improve about my cooking game to put me in a place where I can win the whole thing? Just like Preston won last year. And, we talked to him quite a bit about what happened in those months between his surprise win and entry into WFC and then going and winning at the Final Table. There was a lot. And that's why we're taking the opportunity to talk to each of the champions, kind of find out what they've been up to, what it is that they do in their normal day-to-day, and then also what are they thinking and feeling leading up to the big day. And one of the things that really stood out about this year's World Food Championships was the fact that the global reach was unbelievably evident. We had teams from all over the world. We had teams from France, Spain, Mexico, Japan, Dubai, and that didn't stop there. We actually had multiple of those teams make it to the top 10 in each category. The big news is that a team coming from a global perspective, coming from another place other than the continental United States, won one of the most fought over, sought titles at the World Food Championships, seafood. The winner for the first time came out of Australia, and not only, if that wasn't huge enough, this person, this chef, was a team of one, which you never see at World Food Championships. Normally there's 2 or 3 or there's 5 and they're tagging in and out. This champion came in from Australia, competed for the first time at the World Foods, and literally just beat the competition pretty soundly with skill, execution, experience, and just enthusiasm. It was like watching a finely tuned culinary machine at work. And so today we are talking with the 2022 World Seafood Champion, Chef John McFadden. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Mark. Delighted.
Man, you shocked everybody. Not only was it is just so exciting to see a team from Australia, and you have a couple of competitors there, but you came in, you were a team of one, and you had a plan, and it was poetry to watch your entire week there at World Foods.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was, you said a word to me that really resonates, and that's execution. So, right down to the final minutes. Even in the cook-off at WFC, I had my lesson plan, I had the clock, and I just had to keep checking in every 5 minutes to make sure that, all my workflows were online to deliver, ultimately what I needed to deliver. And, walking into the kitchens there for the first time and seeing the teams of 3 and 5, it was a little bit overwhelming at first, but I had to stick to the game plan and not allow that to sort of derail my execution, so to speak.
And you really did it incredibly well. And, you won your entry into the World Food Championships with events in Australia. And, the first question everybody had, people kept asking, man, what's the food scene like in Australia? What do you do in Australia? Where did you come from? You just got bombarded with questions pretty regularly because there is such a buzz about the World Food Championships being more and more global every year. Kind of tell us a little bit about your journey from being an exec chef in Australia to winning the seafood championship in Dallas.
Yeah, certainly, Mark. I'm delighted to. I stepped out of the kitchen probably professionally about 4 or 5 years ago. And this opportunity came up for the first time in Australia. And it was on the back end of COVID. So we had to put a story together. We had to submit a dish and the recipe. And the dish that I actually entered in on was the ravioli dish, which I cooked at WFC. And the story behind it was that I created this dish for a brain cancer charity event. So I thought, great news story. We raised, I don't know, it was about 50 or 60 grand that evening for brain cancer awareness. And I thought, I'm very passionate about giving back to industry. Seafood's pretty popular here in Australia. How cool would it be to, take a little bit of this over there and see what we can do with it? And that's how it came about. So, the first challenges here were, but it was all virtual. So I had my wife in the kitchen chasing me around with an iPad, sort of, in the first cook-off. And then after that, we got cold down to 10. And then we had live cook-offs out at Sydney Olympic Park, where the Olympic site is in the dome. So we had another 2 live cook-offs there to go from the group of 5 down to 3. And then we cooked in the 2 cook-offs in the same day. Then won the golden ticket that allowed me to come over to Dallas, Texas and compete over there. And, it was just on the scale here to the scale over there, it's monumental.
And you kind of took it all in stride. You have years of experience as an executive chef. You really understand food. You understand the symmetry. You understand the techniques. You understand the flavors. And you just immediately dove right in. And we just watched you. You put your head down and you drilled through. And being in that kitchen station by yourself as a team of one, you really had to be completely in control. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. You had to make a plan, work your plan, and like you said, execute. And that comes down to how the way the EAT methodology works. It's execution, appearance, and taste. And you had a plan from the moment they said go all the way through to completing and turning in the dish. You always looked calm. You were cleaning as you went, which that was talked about regularly, that you still had the cleanest station in the kitchen. But there was so much excitement about it. And, to kind of understand where you came from and what you did with your dishes there at WFC, kind of tell us what the food scene is like in Australia.
Yeah, look, in Australia, we're fairly fortunate here. It's pretty eclectic. We take a lot of Middle Eastern flavors. Shared food concept has been around for a long time. So rather than bigger portions, a lot more smaller portions and shared amongst a group of people. Where we're very fortunate here is that, we have the best of the world. We've got great Japanese restaurants, we've got great fusion restaurants, we've got Mexican restaurants, and the list goes on. So, when someone says, define Australian cuisine, it's really bizarre because we don't really have our own cuisine. We've just sort of adopted everything around the world and people have either tweaked it or put their own twist on it. And that seems to work exceptionally well here. And, the dining scene is massive between, Sydney and Melbourne. We always have this arm wrestle about who's the best state in regards to, food. And, culturally, Melbourne is probably a few steps ahead of Sydney. I live in Sydney. But yeah, look, I think we're very fortunate to have, a pretty solid multicultural society where we bring all those blends from across the world onto a plate. And yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
It really is. And I'd always heard that about the cuisine in Australia, about that perfect blend of different cultures. Are there any ingredients that are very unique to Australian cuisine, or does it really just follow those kind of dishes and cooking styles from around the world?
Yeah, look, there probably isn't any particular ingredients. Obviously, there's new product coming out to market and, dealing with sort of farmers and growers and companies that are at the forefront of the next best thing and, getting your hands on the next best thing first is always at the forefront of hospitality to set yourself apart from your competitors. But once again, it comes back to seasonality, putting the right things on the plate at the right time of year. Obviously, we can get imported fruits that, we can get pomegranates all year round. So it's funny because, people, I need a pomegranate. It could be a USA pomegranate or a Californian pomegranate. And it's just, we have this sort of mindset here that everything's available 24/7, 365 days a year. And, that's all good and well in the perfect world. But, for restaurants that are trying to make some profit, it's also, about buying at the right time, at the right price, and giving people sort of that seasonality and understanding when things are really at their best. So there's a lot of work that goes in here, in particular restaurants, and particularly the high-end restaurants that have that point of difference as to, know where your produce comes from. And, even coming over to WFC, the amount of research that, it was 4 months worth of research in understanding produce, suppliers, farms, sustainability, and even here in Australia, that sustainability footprint has always been huge for me as to knowing about the product, what care is taken in sort of growing that product and getting it to whether it's the restaurant door or, your kitchen at home. And even as a chef, it's about the education piece with the younger generation coming through is, it's great that we all use mushrooms. Well, tell me a little bit about the mushroom. Tell me about the mushroom's journey. And when you start digging down into the mushroom's journey, there's some fantastic stories to be had and told to understand how it actually gets onto the plate. And that's what I'm really passionate about in regards to produce is, when we had the live judging and we could, have the opportunity to talk about our dishes, I used a salmon that was from a hand-raised farm in Scotland, and it just made me feel really proud that, as you said, it's not just about putting food on a plate. It's about telling the story about the food and how every single component actually comes together, and also the region and the history behind the actual dish. So, and that's what I love about food, because you can talk about it for days, but you need to know what you're talking about also.
That usually helps. So it's, now that we kind of understand the cuisine there, walk us through the dishes you cooked at World Food Championships from those initial rounds to winning the top 10 category.
Yeah, certainly. I think first and foremost, the time frame was fantastic because, you talk about execution, timing, allowing enough time to plate up without rushing was really key for me. So the first dish that I presented in the first round against 30 to make top 10 was a prawn and snapper ravioli, shrimp and snapper ravioli with the pea puree. And I used the Caspi caviar. I knew it was going to be a featured ingredient in the main, in the second round. So I thought, it'd be great to use a sponsor's product. That was just a bit of a step in for me that, I could promote a product, use it, understand it. It'd work well with the dish that I was doing. Ravioli. First thing I had to do was obviously make the ravioli dough so it could rest a little bit to let the gluten relax. Otherwise, it would, get a lot of shrinkage, and it tends to toughen up a little bit as well when you cook it. So, the timings worked well. Could allow the dough to rest, and it was about making the snapper mousse. So it was just, it was nice, wonderful white snapper, pink snapper. Egg, white cream, classic combination. Blitzed it all up, made the mousse, finished it with chopped chives, salt and pepper. And then the way the raviolis were filled was that where the prawn came into it is that rather than put the prawns through the mousse was peeled the prawns down, used all the shells to make the prawn butter. And then, just an actual chunk of prawn on the mousse. So texturally, you had the softness of the mousse and then the crispness of the prawn. So when you actually bit the ravioli, there was a couple of layers of texture in the mouth. It wasn't just like a massive soft pillow.
Right.
And then with the prawn shells, they were all roasted down with some with butter. So what happens when you do that is that the milk solids separate. So technically you end up with like the ghee or the fat component. And then I made a vinaigrette from that with sort of cedar mustard, sherry vinegar, and the butter to help emulsify that, and then finish that over the ravioli of green pea puree at the end. So, I had that nice little acid overtones, the softness and the sweetness of the seafood. Fresh garden peas have got that nice sweet flavour to them. So, and then the caviar, like that little punchy, salty notes at the end, and those little pops. yeah, it was just, once again, it was just like a texture and flavor profile that, sort of dances in your mouth a little bit. So it wasn't too overwhelming. And I must admit, mate, to be honest, when I got called out, and I think, the first seven in the top 10 were mentioned, I nearly fell over. I was like having a surreal moment. It's like, I don't believe this has all happened. And then when the scores came out, I was like, wow, I was just like blown away, like, because I've never done it before, didn't know what to expect. I guess I didn't put too much expectations on myself. But because I knew that I executed, I was also really happy with what I did. And it was always going to be what it was going to be. So I wasn't disappointed in what I did. But that result just that was like a grandstand performance for me. Do you know what I mean? So, I was blown away. I was pretty chuffed.
Well, I think that's one of the things that, that you really bring to the table with your vast experience and background was the understanding, like we talked about, understanding the techniques. You understand the techniques to not only bring different flavors, but a really key component is those different textures. So that, like you said, a lot of people bite into a ravioli and it just becomes very one note. It's very soft. It's very mushy. It's a filling inside a pillow, and there it is. But to be able to understand that you want to add other textural components, and then above that, when you look at adding the caviar from Chef Sean Hergat and his Michelin star restaurants, his Caspi caviar, now you're adding not just another flavor profile, you're adding another texture, and then you're adding another visual component. So you went in with an incredibly solid plan. You knew what it was you wanted to do. And then you said, okay, I know I have this much time. You had it mapped out as far as, how much time you should spend on each component. And when it was time for you to deliver the dish down the red carpet, you're very calm, very composed, and you just brought it and sat down. There was no last minute running, and there was no things jostling. You really knew it was going. Then you find out you're going into the top 10 round. You know that you're going to be looking into not only creating a dish for top 10 for this chance to win the category, but you're also going to face that gauntlet of the master judges. So you kind of had a twofold consideration there. What did you end up making in the final round?
Yeah, certainly, Matt. Well, I had it mapped out. I'd already had my second dish. Well, my goal was that second dish. So all went recipes ready to rock and roll. And the dish that I did submit was a confit salmon with pickled cucumber, baby beets, and we had to feature Caspi caviar. And that was finished. The way I finished it was I used a Japanese mayo, and I did the Japanese mayo two ways. I did it with once the salmon was confit, there was a small dollop on the top because it's got a certain richness to it, and then the caviar went onto the Japanese mayo that sat on top of the piece of confit salmon. But also around the side of the plate, I mixed some of the Japanese mayo with squid ink, really salty. Squid ink's quite salty. So once again, it was just that flavor profile of, pickled cucumber, which sort of cleanses the palate a little bit. Confit salmon is, because it's got a high fat content, it's quite rich. So you just needed something to cut through that. And then there was a supplier that I used over there for all my veg, and I hand selected the nice baby beets with the long tails. So cooked those down. And once again, just gave it some really nice earthy overtones with the seafood products. So sort of that combination between, ocean and earth as such in regards to those flavor profiles. And because of the richness of the salmon and the Japanese mayo, needed the pickled cucumber there just to sort of soften the palate. So it wasn't just like, this is pretty full on. And then beetroot's got a nice little sweetness to them also. So once again, collectively, and then the caviar. So once again, there's layers and layers of sort of complexity in the dish. Although it looked simple, and I had the time to do it because in the final, it was 11 dishes, 1 presentation dish, 10 tasting plates. It was the perfect dish for that. There was 1 hour 20 that we had to execute that dish completed. I had that time to do it and do it really, really well. I was fortunate. And once again, I was really happy. I think what's really interesting, that little red, well, not the little red carpet, but the carpet that you walk down, I tell you, it's amazing how heavy your arms feel just carrying that platter to that table. It's you can work like a soldier in the kitchen and be quite militant and clinical. But that platter, mate, it weighs like 20 kilos. It's incredible.
And you did it very well because nobody knew that you were struggling with how heavy that platter was. So you've made your turn in, you have your hands up, you step back. What was it like to go up when it was your turn and face the master judges? Because there were some pretty significant people on that panel, one being a Michelin star chef and Sean Herget. What was it like to stand in front of the master judges?
Oh, look, I loved it. It's I feel really confident about talking about my food and the reasons as the who, what, where, and why. So I quite enjoyed that experience. And it was really good to hear the judge's vision on the dish. Because, I got questioned around the squid ink mayo with the plain mayo, just the plain mayo. And, one of the judges said, it's the yin and yang of the dish. And to me, he hit the nail on the head without me physically saying it. And it's like exactly like you've got the saltiness there, you've got the richness there. And it was a great way of explaining how it came together without me sort of saying that. So seeing the judge's perspective on things, it was fantastic. And even after that presentation with the other competitors, what was really, it was a huge moment for me in the competition. Obviously, once the 10, 11 competitors presented all the dishes to the judges, we all moved away. I had to go back to the kitchen. And because other teams were there sort of packing down, like the kitchen was like, wow, everyone's gone, packed up, done and dusted. And I felt like the poor kid from the country that couldn't afford anybody. And I had to pack down my kitchen, stood out like the proverbial. And what was good about it is Sean actually came over. And, mate, he just stood there having a chat to me for about 15, 20 minutes while I was packing up the kitchen and cleaning down. And you've got a Michelin star chef that took 20 minutes out of his day just to come over and have a chat. And I found that really powerful and motivating for anybody, that somebody of his stature and his credibility to take time out. And that's something in my career that I've given myself to. And even to be here now talking about it, just speechless. I sent a Sean message when I came back to Australia. Just that moment for me was, you talk about career highlights. I hadn't even won anything by that stage. And to just sit there and have that conversation, that'll stay with me for a lifetime.
It does. And I think a lot of people had similar moments, whether it was in the seafood category or barbecue or burger. There was those people there that did just that. They're at the top of their fields, and they literally took time to sit down and talk to everybody. And I think that was one of the components of master judges that a lot of people didn't realize was going to happen. They just thought, they're going to judge and it's gone. They really did take time to spend some time with people. And, it's like you said, you presented your dish to a point where it kind of spoke for itself. The judges said exactly kind of what you'd done and where you were headed. And it was just flowing perfectly. And then you get down to the announcement, and they start going from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7. And now you're down to a final 3. What did it feel like when it was down? You're either going to be first or you're going to be second, and you're just waiting to hear the next name called. What was that like?
It felt like it took an eternity to get the result. Well, that wasn't that long, let's face it. But
feels it.
Well, honestly, Mark, like when the result was mentioned, I probably have to be honest. I think I couldn't believe it. I just don't think it really sunk in that immediately. It's like it didn't happen that fast, but it felt like it happened that fast. You've got the lead up, you've got the build up. I'm coming from Australia. I've got to get myself set up over there. I've got, competition on this day. 2 days later, we're in top 10, competing again. And then you come back and you get the results. And it's like, wow, what just happened? And then you're on the stage with Mike and Sean receiving the award and yourself as the MC. And I was like, wow, I'm standing here on a stage with a world title here in Dallas, Texas, representing Australia. And I was just, I don't know, I don't want to say I was overwhelmed, but it was nice to sort of take it in and just enjoy the moment. It was just, for me, and talk about career highlights. Look, mate, honestly, I haven't competed in a competition for over 30 years. So, to throw my hat in the ring, here to have the opportunity to go over for the WFC and then come home with a title, it sort of makes me feel really proud that, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. It doesn't just happen and come together. There's a lot of support crew. Although I didn't have a team in the kitchen, there was a lot of people around me that made a lot of things happen. And without their support, their help, I probably wouldn't be able to have done half the stuff that I managed to do over there. So, I've been very fortunate in that regard. And yeah, look, it's even now, like to sit here, got the jacket on, I feel, you feel like 6 inches taller. It's great.
Yep, you do. And, you win, you've got the title, you're headed back home to Australia. It appears that the media in Australia really took a liking to you bringing back that championship back home.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. The opportunities and through television and radio and the newspapers. I've been very fortunate since I've come back with all those opportunities through the media. It's been celebrated everywhere. It still continues. I've been asked to go back for another TV segment for Easter. The momentum's, it's still there. It's still pumping and growing. And, there's other opportunities like brand ambassador roles that have sort of come to the fore also. And, and even with the lead up to final table, there's once again, it's sort of like, oh, we haven't quite peaked yet and we're still on this trajectory. And, and I've loved it. I've loved every moment of it. And, and for all the category winners, it's something that everyone should be celebrating and be very proud of because, it's quite an achievement.
It absolutely is. And, speaking of that, you've got all of these things going on there at home. And what is it that, what is your day-to-day like? What is it that you're doing in the culinary world there in Australia today?
Yeah, certainly. Well, my day job, I after I stepped out of the kitchen, I actually work for a digital food safety company. So having worked with sort of HACCP accredited food safety plans previously in big group roles, we've now got a component. Well, not a component. Our platform digitizes that and provides live time reporting. So that's quite valuable with my connections in industry and meeting compliance. I spend a lot of my time in the creative space. When I mean by creative, it's all food driven. So if I'm not doing that, I'm either writing a new recipe or working with someone's product or developing or creating. And where I've been really fortunate after stepping out of the kitchen is I now have the time to give the time. Because I guess when you're working in a kitchen and having been involved in multiple organizations with multiple outlets, you've just got your head and bum buried in the day-to-day stuff. And it just keeps coming thick and fast. But now I have that time to be creative. There was a gentleman that gave me some California pomegranates the other day, so I created a dish with that. And it was great, just that experimental piece, the playing around. And that's the part that I've sort of missed in the kitchen, but I'm not giving it up either. So, it's all on my time. It sounds really weird, but I find cooking quite relaxing because it's my thing. It's my groove. It's what makes me happy. And, if I go 3 or 4 days without cooking, it has an impact on me because, right. Food's a celebration. It brings people together for better or worse. It's about generosity. And I just love what food stands for. It's universal. Everyone's got to eat every day. That communal dining, family presence, it's powerful. And I've loved it, since I've been a kid, and I love it to the day I head upstairs. So amazing.
Yeah, food is, I've always said it, food is the one universal language. We all eat, we all love to eat together. It's the thing that connects and binds generations and cultures. Food is that ultimate language. So, you're almost there, a couple more months, a little bit more time, which is going to go in a blink, and you will step into the kitchens there in Bentonville to compete for the World Food Championship title. Where can everybody follow you on social media if they want to kind of follow your journey to the title?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously on Facebook, I do a lot of posting on Facebook under John McFadden. And also on Instagram, it's just John_McFadden_. So, everyone can see my food journey there and the build up. And I also use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is quite powerful sort of globally. And funny enough, even for WFC, there was members over in Dallas, Texas that offered support. Keith Denard Jones, who actually had a stall or a stand there, he reached out to me, put me in contact for a chef called Whitey, and he drove me around town everywhere, picking up everything I needed to. So all the blitzers and blenders were his, and you just cannot underestimate the power of networking. And here's a bunch of strangers I've never met in my entire life that were just willing to give anything and everything to, this stranger. And yeah, it's quite humbling, to be honest with you, that, people are willing to, dig deep and support you. And, and in hospitality, it's just nice to know that camaraderie it's universal, because it's something that's ingrained in people in kitchens, front of house, back of house. It is just this incredible bond that it doesn't matter where you're from or where you're going, that people just magnetize towards each other, and they're willing to give their best to get you the best. And, I was pretty blown away by the legwork that, Keith and Whitey did for me over in Dallas. And look, and, Bentonville next, and all the research has started in their food styles and history, and made contact with the Lord Mayor so we can have a cup of coffee and she can go over everything for me so I'm doing as much as I can to be in the game when I get there. I guess the whole WFC, I guess what's been fantastic here is because last year was the first opportunity that Australia's had to be involved in the competition. And obviously, we had a small team that went over there, which was great. I've come back with a championship title. The awareness here has been amazing. The marketing company that's promoting it here and the registrations for this year have been very supportive of me. So I've helped them with sort of some promotional stuff. And I think the good thing about it, Mark, is it's just that awareness, that any walk, I don't want to say any walk of life, but anyone that has a passion and interest in food can step up to the plate and give it a good crack. And that's what I like about it, because in my career, I've been professionally trained. I've worked in kitchens and hatted kitchens. But there's some bloody good home cooks out there. And I've had people in my kitchens that weren't qualified. And they were excellent. And what I like about it is it doesn't discriminate. And that's what I love about it the most. So if you've got a passion, a desire to cook some fabulous food and put it on the world stage, well, here's the perfect foundation to provide that. And I guess that's what I love about industry. It's about the opportunity, and it's there for anyone and everybody. So I did a little video for the World Food Championships Australia here to get registrations underway to the ultimate golden ticket, and that's exactly what I said in my spiel. To go over to Dallas, downtown Australia, to go over to Dallas, Texas, and sort of compete. The thing that really blew me away over there was the friendships, the camaraderie, and I was in awe of the people and the support, considering it was our first time there. I didn't know one person from the next, so to speak, but coming away from that, my gosh, the networking, the friendships, the contacts, it's been first class. And I sort of take my hat off to all the organizers and the committee, like just the backhand running of it The team in the office, the support, the follow up on emails. Like seriously, mate, it's next level. So I was just, I don't know, I just feel really proud to be a part of something that's really professional.
That's awesome. And, it's one of the things that a lot of people realize when it comes to the World Food Championships, that just kind of, you don't know until you've been there. So that's good. And that's why I like to do this show, is so that people get a little more of the behind the scenes, but also get to know the competitors that are there, know some of the sponsors, know some of the people, so they can kind of really get a chance to understand that it's not just, okay, I showed up and I cooked something. There's a whole lot more to it. You're listening to FoodSport Central, the podcast of the World Food Championships. And remember, follow the World Food Championships on social media, because all of the up-to-minute announcements and news and just mega things are all going to be rolled out on social media. And also bookmark the worldfoodchampionships.com. That's where you're going to find more details, the dates, the guidelines, the rules, things like that. So to stay completely up to date, make sure that you follow and share the World Food Championships. Chef John McFadden, it's been a pleasure to talk to you from Australia. It's morning time there right now. And it's great to be able to catch up with you again and just hear what's going on with you. And we look forward to everything that's to come there at Final Table, and we'll be seeing you before we know it.
Look forward to it. Can't wait.
Well, guys, we'll see you again next week with an episode of Food Sports Central, the podcast of the World Food Championships. See you later.